Welcome to the Spy Collection. This is Anastasios, and in this episode we will review 4 more of the allegedly leaked US intelligence community documents. In early April 2023, several documents allegedly originating from the United States intelligence community were shared on social media platforms. We cannot assess the authenticity or intention behind this, but those documents are an excellent example of different military intelligence products and disciplines. So we'll look at 4 of them for educational and historical purposes. We already published a similar analysis for another one. Links in the description. We'll start with this document, for which we're missing its bottom part of the photo. Nevertheless, it's an interesting case of a military intelligence RFI. We have reconstructed it to be easier to describe. On the top left, we see the insignia of the United States Joint Chief of Staff, which indicates who was the recipient of this intelligence product. It was classified as secret with a no foreign marking. This stands for not releasable to foreign nationals, and as its name implies, it means that it should not be shared with anyone outside of the United States, and you'll quickly understand why. This was discussing a potential vulnerability in a US weapon system, so no matter how you see it, it's not something beneficial for the US to share with anyone else. The title of the report was Request for Information number 750. Why are JDAM-ERs failing? Battle damage assessment from recent strike? We do not know if the 750 is a sequential number indicating that there were 749 prior RFIs, or if it has a different numeric scheme. In any case, what this means is that someone from the Joint Chief of Staff asked their intelligence personnel those questions. Those were documented under this RFI, and here is the answer to them. For those not familiar with the JDAM family, it's a technology, basically a kit, that started in the late 90s. That kit is attached to unguided bombs and turns them into guided ones. Now the ER variant, as we read in this article from Air Force Technology, Joint Direct Attack Munition Extended Range, JDAM-ER, is the latest winged variant of the Joint Direct Attack Munition, JDAM, precision bomb guidance kit produced by Boeing. JDAM kits, which have been produced since 1998, can transform unguided free-fall bombs into all-weather precision-guided smart weapons. They are currently employed by the US Air Force, US Navy, and militaries of more than 26 other countries. JDAM-ER was jointly developed by Boeing and Australia's Defence Science and Technology Organisation, DSTO. It entered service with the Royal Australian Air Force in 2015. The advanced bomb guidance kit incorporates a low-cost wing set to triple the standoff range of JDAMs to more than 45 miles, or 72 kilometers. Bloomberg reported in February 2023 that the US is providing JDAM-ER weapon systems to Ukraine as part of its $1.85 billion of additional military aid announced in December 2022. Back to the allegedly leaked document, we have this very close-up photo of an MAU-12. This is a heavy-duty ejector rack which is used, among others, to carry and release JDAM-ER bombs from aircrafts. You can find more details about it online, but in summary, we see on the left the solenoid that holds the arming lanyard ring. As we're reading, the arming lanyard ring is pulled when the weapon drops. Visual confirmation of this, around 8 in wire after flight, verifies fuse was armed properly. So based on that, we know that the JDAM-ERs were armed properly but still failed. On the right we see a plunger, saying that depressed, meaning weapon present, provides power to the solenoid, and when extended, meaning the weapon was dropped, the power is removed. When the power is removed, the solenoid is de-energized. Thus, the arming lanyard pulls free, but the weapon is a dud. That is, it's not going to work or explode. On the bottom, we see the aft sway brace where the bomb unit's arming lanyard is tied off, and the US follows this practice too. And we also read that 1,000 of those arming lanyards were provided, and the GWT will be sending more soon. Now, when an intelligence recipient would get this report in their hands, they wouldn't check all of those things we did. They'll read the title and directly go here, the bottom line up front. In the business world, the same practice is known as executive summary, but the aim is the same. Intelligence analysts know that decision makers might only have a few minutes available to deal with a topic, so if they have to read only one sentence, this is the one to read. And here it says that JDAM-ER isn't failing. However, there are two factors that have contributed to dodge and/or misses. If someone wanted to get a more in-depth understanding, they could read the full explanation. First, bomb fuses are not arming at release. This was the case on February 15th, one high-order explosion and two assessed dodge. See picture displaying the fix above. The Ukrainian Air Force have implemented a material fix to ensure JDAM-ER fuses are arming correctly, tying the fuse arming lanyard off to the aft MAU-12 sway brace. And indeed, this fix is clearly visible in the picture, as you see here. The second issue, however, was slightly more interesting than the design flaw. GPS signal acquisition, and yes, the original document had this typo here. Here it says that the Security Assistance Group Ukraine, that is the US military's joint coordination group for the operations conducted in Ukraine, based in Wiesbaden, Germany. So SAG-U and Task Force Grey Wolf, that is a US Air Force entity actively assisting the Ukrainian Air Force on how to conduct Air Force operations in the war with Russia, suspected that Russian GPS jamming hindered JDAM-ER operations, causing some misses. Also the case sometimes with the GMLRS, this one. However, the director of the Joint Navigation Warfare Center stated, based on their analysis, GPS should have not affected JDAM-ER strikes based on target location compared to active Russian jammers, but other factors may have prevented the JDAM-ER from acquiring GPS signal. Here we also see the practical value of the ELINT spy planes that fly continuously around Ukraine. This statement clearly indicates that the US had visibility on where the Russian GPS jammers were located, and the most common method to discover that is using ELINT spy planes. Continuing, it says that the EM-GIMSO, that is the US military's Joint Electromagnetic Spectrum Operations, working with US Air Force in Europe and the SAG-U to ensure Ukraine is following appropriate tactics, techniques and procedures to ensure the JDAM-ERs have a good GPS location from the pylon prior to weapon employment and is not trying to get GPS acquisition in flight after launch. There are 4 specific points around that. First, the Ukrainian Air Force have dropped 9 JDAM-ER against 3 targets, 1 re-attack due to a miss. Each target required 2 to 3 JDAM-ER to achieve desired effects as per the 603rd Air Operations Command A23T weaponeering. Note that the 603 AOC is based in Ramstein, Germany. Then, the GWT and SAG-U assess good effects on all 3 targets with a February 21st strike. Bomb hit and battle damage assessments are ongoing. Storyboards attached. We'll actually see all 3 of them. Next, the GWT assesses with medium to high confidence that 4 of the 9 weapons have missed due to Russian GPS jamming effects. This is telling us that they aren't absolutely certain that the root cause of the failed JDAM-ERs was Russian GPS jamming, but it's a scenario that, based on the information they had available, is very realistic. And finally, that Russian GPS jammers are a high priority for SAG-U, and will continue to advocate and recommend that those jammers are disrupted or destroyed by hand SS fires to the maximum extent possible before JDAM-ER employments. And that was the first document, and it's probably clearer now why the US military marked it as NOFOR. It shows a design flaw and a vulnerability against GPS jamming for one very common weapon system. Following that, we look at the storyboards mentioned in this report. Once again, we cannot vouch for the validity of any of the content, their intent, or whether there were more documents in between. The title of this document was Battle Damage Assessment from Recent Strike, February 15, 2023. It was for target Kilo Papa 0041, and this is the damage report card for a guided bomb unit that resulted in severe damage, and it was part of the RFI 750 that we just covered. The insignia are from the SAG-U, but unfortunately we couldn't find it online, so we reused the one from the leaked document. On the top of the insignia it says Security Assistance Group Ukraine, and in the center it has the map of Ukraine in its national colors, with its coat of arms in the center, and all around it a star potentially resembling the United States and/or NATO's role. As we read, target Kilo Papa 0041 was a command and control node. Next we have its grid coordinates, which is helping us identify the exact location of the attack. It was actually in the region of Donetsk. Then we have the pre and post-strike images, and this is quite interesting since it's one of the first times that we see a modern use of OSINT. The pre-strike image was collected on February 10, 2023 at 22:11:09 local time by an overhead platform which is not specified here, but it was likely a classified source, while the post-strike, it was collected from publicly available information that someone had shared, maybe on social media or elsewhere. Lastly, the date of the BDA was on February 15, 2023. Now this one has a different classification from the previous one. Before it was publicly leaked on social media, it was originally classified as secret, with a marking allowing it to be released to the United States and the Five Eyes, that is, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand, along with the US. This is quite interesting considering that the issues with the JDAM ERs, part of the same RFI, were not to be shared with anyone. Next we read that the overall assessment was that it resulted in confirmed severe damage, and this is based on US-produced intelligence on a US-mensurated target. And here are the post, pre-strike, and general vicinity photos from the original document. Once again, the two photos on the left came from open sources, while the top right one was from a classified intelligence gathering platform. And here is the summary of the BDA. On February 15, 2023, 0430 Zulu time, Ukrainian Air Force engaged a command and control node with 3 guided bomb unit munitions located in the vicinity of Marinka, likely associated with Russia's 8th Guards Combined Arms Army. Physical damage assessment confirmed severe damage. The strike destroyed the northeastern building, causing 45% damage to the target, resulting in windows to be blown out, debris scattered, walls to fall, panels to be blown off the walls, as well as the roof, and a collapse of the northern center segment of the building. There is a vehicle north of the target that appears to be loaded up with scavenged equipment left over. The targeted building in the south was not damaged. There is observable historic damage in the area. Only one of the 3 GBU rounds has observable damage. And continues that the weaponeered aim point is approximately 6 kilometers from the forward line of own troops. Initial functional assessment confirmed severe functional damage. The targeted northeastern structure suffered total functional damage due to the mass amount physical damage, debris, and collapse of portions of the building. The southern target suffered no physical damage, therefore has sustained no functional damage. The next document we looked was part of the same RFI. It was this one. And it was titled BDA from Recent Strike, Target Kilo 84 TPDE for February 19, 2023 of the Ukrainian Air Force. From the very original release of those documents in a Discord chat server, it was heavily redacted, so whoever leaked it didn't want to expose parts of this, specifically its entire header of the target details. The only thing left was the classification markings and overall assessment. Notice that this could also be shared with Ukraine based on those markings prior to becoming a publicly available document as it is now. Next, we see the photos which we copied from the original document. On the bottom right, we have the area of operations marked in red. On the top right, the pre-strike imagery from February 8, 2023 at 8:37 Zulu time, and on the left side, the post-strike satellite imagery from February 20th, 2023 at 8:26 Zulu time. Notice that both the pre- and post-strike satellite imagery originated from Digital Globe. This is quite interesting since in the last few years the US intelligence community has been investing more and more into commercial satellite imagery. So it's interesting seeing the fusion of classified, open source and commercially acquired information into those finished intelligence products. On the left image, we see three marked points, the impact points 1 and 2, as well as the bridge. You can easily geolocate these in the Luhansk region, in the city of Kreminna. Open source reporting also matches this activity. For instance, in this summary from Critical Threats, we're reading that Russian forces continued ground assaults near Kreminna on February 19 and 20. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that Ukrainian forces repelled assaults near Kreminna, Chervonopopivka, 6 km north of Kreminna, and Bilohorivka, 10 km south of Kreminna. Geolocated footage posted on February 19 shows that Russian forces have made marginal advances near Torske, 15 km west of Kreminna. So that strike was potentially related to this battle. The exact description, which again was missing the entire second paragraph, said, on February 19, 2023, 0440 Zulu time, the Ukrainian Air Force engaged the bridge with 2 precision strike weapon munitions located in the vicinity of Kreminna. Physical damage assessment confirmed severe damage. The strike caused severe damage across approximately 15% of the structure. The weapon-eared aim point was approximately 1 meter from the impact point 1, 118 meters from impact point 2, and approximately 8 kilometers from the forward line of own troops. And on the bottom right, you see the intelligence product's serial number. The first part is telling us that this was produced by the United States Air Force in Europe, Air Forces Africa. Its serial number was 0124-23, and then we have its date of production, which was February 20, 2023. This is one of the strangest allegedly leaked documents, since it was shared with big parts of its content removed. Nevertheless, it's leading us to the last document for this episode, this document. This is the last document we could find for the same RFI. It's a battle damage assessment from February 21st, 2023 on target Kilo Papa 0255. As we're reading, this could be released only to the Five Eyes, and we also see that Kilo Papa 0255 target was an assembly area for enemy forces. Using the grid coordinates, we can find the exact spot, which is located in Donetsk. Also this time, both the pre- and post-strike imagery originated from classified overhead collection platforms, and the analysis we see was conducted by the 176th Intelligence Squadron, part of the United States National Guard. Here is the relevant satellite imagery, and the summary of this was that one. On February 21st, 2023, at 14:20 Zulu time, the Ukrainian Air Force engaged an assembly area with 2 precision strike weapon munitions located in Bakhmut. Physical damage assessment, possible severe damage. The strike caused severe damage to the structure. Comparing the post-strike image to pre-strike imagery, the structure classification features are no longer visible. The weapon-eared aim point is approximately 0.5 kilometers from the forward line of own troops. In conclusion, we learned how the JDAM ER vulnerabilities were to be kept a secret from anyone outside of the US military. We saw a practical example of how the SAG-U and the Task Force Grey Wolf support the Ukrainian Air Force in a covert manner, meaning without any publicly visible attribution of the activities back to those entities. We learned how the Russian GPS jamming is used and how it likely affected weapons like the JDAM ER and GMLRS, that the US intelligence community has the ability to map the active Russian GPS jammers and use that as part of the military operations planning, as well as that the SAG-U recommended and advocated for targeting those Russian jammers before employing any of those weapons to increase their effectiveness. We also saw how the Ukrainian and US forces mitigated the vulnerabilities of the JDAM ERs, And of course, we saw the full details of 3 separate BDAs that employed a wide variety of intelligence disciplines. And that leads us to the last point. Those documents are an excellent practical example of how multiple intelligence disciplines can be combined by intelligence analysts to produce high-quality finished products. Very insightful documents, providing anyone interested in the intelligence domain with a tiny glimpse into the military intelligence space that is usually hidden from plain sight. Don't forget though that we do not know whether those documents are accurate, manipulated, or even if they are real, especially considering there was some removed content. The overall look and feel appears legitimate and following best practices of modern spy agencies. But in a world of spies, nothing is as it seems.